Hello, and in this part 2 IELTS speaking video, I'm going to look at the topic, describe an old person who is interesting. You should say who this person is, how you know him or her, what you do with this person, and explain why you think this person is interesting. And after the part 2, I will look at a couple of part 3 questions connected with this topic. I've decided to talk about a friend of the family. I call her Auntie Jo, but she's not my real aunt. She's an honorary aunt. I can't recall when I first met her. As far as I'm aware, she has always been around. I think she was close friends with my grandparents, and she became part of the family. She's in her late 70s now, but she's not your typical OAP. She is a spring chicken. I think because she is young at heart, this keeps her young, both mentally and physically. When I was studying in primary school, my parents used to work long hours, and so Auntie Jo would look after us until they got home. The main reason why I find her fascinating is that she used to live in Italy when she was younger, and she would tell me stories about her time there. She's a good raconteur, and her tales were hilarious. She may have told a few white lies to make the stories more entertaining, but I didn't care. She's such a great storyteller. Because she spent many years living in Italy, she prepares exciting and tasty dishes such as pizza and pasta. Most oldies in my country are not into Italian cuisine, but I love the fact that she has embraced another culture, and to this day she makes homemade pizza when I pop round to see her. Unlike many senior citizens who are stuck in their ways and do not like change, she embraces change and is always keen to try something new. She has an Instagram account and regularly posts selfies. She is computer literate and knows more about computers than many people half her age. She's inspirational because despite her age, she doesn't slow down, she just enjoys life. They say you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, that is nonsense because my Auntie Jo never stops learning, and I think that is what keeps her young. So let's talk about the language in this topic. I don't have an Auntie Jo. I've invented her for this topic. You don't have to talk about a real person. I think sometimes many IELTS candidates focus on truth rather than language. Just focus on language, not truth. So she's a friend of the family, a family friend, and she's not my real aunt. And somebody who's not your real aunt or uncle, but you call them an aunt or uncle, we call them an honorary aunt, because they have the honour of being your aunt or uncle, an honorary aunt or an honorary uncle. I can't recall when, I can't remember when. As far as I'm aware, very useful for part 3 as well, because often you don't know something for certain. As far as I know, as far as I'm aware. In her late 70s, remember not to be specific about people's ages, in her early 70s, in her mid 70s, in her late 70s. And we use this to talk about old people, and it stands for old age person, and we call them an OAP, and we can use it in the plural, OAPs. She's a spring chicken. Now we usually use this negatively to describe somebody who's old. We say she's not a spring chicken. So, for example, me, I'm in my late 40s. You could say she's not a spring chicken. But I'm saying because she's quite young, mentally and physically, then she is a spring chicken. So she appears younger than her actual age, because spring chickens are very young chickens. Young at heart, we use this a lot to describe somebody who might be old, but they seem very young because they have young interests or they're still very lively and active. We call them young at heart. So it keeps her young both mentally and physically. We talk about somebody's mental abilities, their physical abilities. So she's young both mentally and physically. In any IELTS speaking task 2, try and get, when I was studying in primary school, when I was studying in university, my parents used to, I used to, because you've got some complex grammar there. Auntie Jo would look after us. Would can be used instead of used to. This is a topic about somebody you find interesting. Another word for interesting, fascinating. She used to live in Italy. She would tell me stories. Again, used to, would for talking about the past. A good raconteur. Raconteur is a French word that we use in English, and it means a person who's good at telling stories. A good raconteur, a great storyteller. Her tales, her stories were hilarious, very, very funny. And another word for interesting, entertaining. Unlike in the topic where somebody's told a lie, a few white lies, so little lies. Because this topic is about an old person, we need different ways to describe them. An oldie, it's quite an informal word, but oldies are old people. Not into Italian cuisine. Cuisine means food, and if you're not into something, it means you don't like it. I'm not into cricket. I'm not into rugby. It means I don't like it. She has embraced another culture. I've used the word embrace twice. Embraces change. And this means you totally accept it. So if you embrace another culture, you go in and you fall in love with it and you accept it and you want to know more about it. If you embrace change, you like change. A lot of old people don't like change, but she embraces change. To this day, up until this point, when I pop round to see her, very useful for IELTS writing general, task 1 if you're writing an informal letter. Pop round any time means come round. So when I go round, when I come round to see her. Another way of describing old people, senior citizens. And we talk about people, not just old people, can be young people as well, who are stuck in their ways. And that means they do something and they don't want to change the way they do something. And like I say, it's not just old people, it can be young people as well, who are stuck in their ways. They don't like change. Social media, you put a picture of yourself on social media. We say to post selfies or to post a selfie. Computer literate, very good at using a computer. Many people half her age, so younger people than her. She's inspirational, she's motivational, she encourages you. She doesn't slow down. So you're talking about an old person. When people get older, sometimes they slow down. They're not as active, they don't do as many things, but she doesn't slow down. This is an expression we use in English. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. Because if you have an old dog, they don't really want to learn new things and tricks and jumping around. And we use it to describe old people as well. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. It's very difficult to teach them new things. But I'm saying that is nonsense. Nonsense means rubbish. Not true. It's nonsense because Auntie Jo loves learning and it keeps her young. So I hope that you have enough now to talk about an old person. It's easier if you're talking about an old person who's young at heart, who hasn't slowed down, who embraces change, who is not stuck in their ways, and you can use all this complex vocabulary. So let's have a look at a couple of part 3s connected with this topic. So if you get this topic, they might ask you, what can old people teach young people? Well, nowadays, many young people consume too much fast food and rely on convenience food. So they consume, they eat too much fast food, takeaways, and they depend on Convenience food, so this is ready meals that you buy from the supermarket or fast food. Convenience, it's easy. Therefore, the thing we can learn most from the older generation is cooking from scratch. This is a vital life skill that is sadly lacking in many teens. So we're talking about old people, the older generation. To cook from scratch, this means to cook something from the ingredients, not to buy it in a packet, but it means to get raw ingredients like mushrooms, tomatoes, and cook from scratch. So you're cooking right from the very start. And I'm saying it's a vital life skill, it's an important skill, and it's sadly lacking. So many teens do not have the ability to do this. Is sadly lacking, could be used in IELTS writing as well. Not only is cooking cheaper than buying ready meals, but it's more nutritious, wholesome and tastier. So we've got lots of complex language in here. I'm basically focusing on one area because it's allowing me to get lots of language in there. So consuming fast food, relying on convenience food, cooking from scratch, ready meals, nutritious, wholesome, tastier. I'm getting a lot of complex language in my answer. Another question you might get asked is, do you think old people should live with their family? My initial reaction was yes, because they looked after us when we were young and we should return the favour. So my initial reaction, very useful for part 3, because when you're asked a question, it's what do you think first? Yes, but then you might change your mind. So my initial reaction was yes, my first reaction was yes, because they looked after us when we were young and we should return the favour. If somebody does something nice to you, then we return the favour. It means do something nice back to them. However, I think that answer is too simplistic. Very useful sentence that you could use in part 3, saying my answer is too simple, and it's not as simple as that. My answer is too simplistic. There are many children who do not have a good relationship with their parents for a variety of reasons, which I won't go into, and sometimes it is impossible for them to live under the same roof. On the whole, it is a good idea, but it is not always doable. So those children who do not have a good relationship with their parents for a variety of reasons, for many reasons, use that in writing as well, which I won't go into. To go into something means I'll talk about it and discuss it further. You can use this a lot in part 3, they say, which I won't go into because I don't have time. And it's impossible for them to live under the same roof. We use this expression to mean to live together, to live under the same roof. The roof is the top part of the house, so it's impossible for them to live together. On the whole, generally, it's a good idea, but it's not always doable. I like this word doable, and it means it cannot always be done. So something that cannot always be done is not always doable. So quite useful for part 3, where you're giving a suggestion of something, but saying it's not always doable. Hope you found this useful. I am struggling with a cold, so my voice might be slightly different in this video, but thank you very much for watching.